really stuck out for me in my journey. It's loving technology, and I did from a very early age. I'm part of Gen X, and that means kind of I learned how to type on a typewriter, and at home, I was the remote control and the dishwasher. So I was excited about technology and gadgets and electronics from a very early age. I remember when I was 10, I asked my parents for a computer for Christmas. Actually, kind of begged them for a computer for Christmas, and they got it for me. Thanks, mom and dad. And that's kind of where I really just, it kind of like got stuck in me. I really liked computers and I liked learning them and learning how to use everything on them. And that kind of guided me as I started working. I started working when I was about 16 and I gravitated towards any job that would let me use a computer. And another thing that is important about my journey is the fact that I love people. I like talking to them. I like connecting with them. I like letting them get to know me. So I kind of just continue to find ways to put those two things together, like really liking being very collaborative, being a team player, and just devouring as much information and technology as I possibly could. And it kind of led me towards executive admin, executive support, because I also I'm a pretty good communicator, and I was always the kind of person who gravitated towards the leaders of an organization. I wanted to know what they knew, and I wanted to find out as much as I could about the particular company that I was at, so that I could be the cheerleader and I could rah everyone around me, and kind of putting all those things together. I'm like, oh, I'm good with talking with the leaders, and I like making things better and automating processes, and I'm really collaborative. I should probably do this. I'm going to support executive. So I did that for probably the first 10 years of my career, and I was really good at it. Earned a lot of trust, and that turned into me being able to work on a lot of like special projects and side projects and ERGs and implementation teams. But most importantly, it gave me opportunities to work with other departments like marketing. And that's when I figured out, whoa, this is really fun. I can use technology and I can talk a lot. I want to do that. I want to do that. So kind of parallel with my career in executive support, I was always working on these side projects. So like all the time working on vision and mission and building collateral and learning the new back end of a website, doing a rebrand and trade shows and apparel. So doing all of these things like on the side. And then I kind of realized that I was feeling more fulfillment from this thing that I was doing on the side and not the job I was getting paid to do. So I started to kind of shift. I started shifting towards what was fulfilling for me. And I had a really wonderful opportunity when I worked at a heavy haul and specialized moving company in like 2012, 2013 timeframe. And that was the last time I held the role of EA. And I also started managing their social media, and I was the liaison for their marketing, their outside marketing agency, and kind of was really, really up close with so many of those marketing projects, and was like, yep, this is the right move. Continue to pull that way. And it was really fun to work at that company because we did some interesting things. One, if you've lived in Portland for a long time, you remember it's the company that moved the Selwood Bridge, that picked it up and moved it like six inches at a time. So being part of that project and the filming of that project and putting case studies together, I knew I had made like the right decision, and just kind of continued on that path. And worked there for a while, worked at a crane rental company as their marketing manager. And that was interesting as well. And then I found I found this opportunity at DAT. I'd actually been laid off about 7 months before, and looking, trying to find something wonderful. And I had a good friend who was a front end developer at DAT, and he said, they have an opening in the marketing department. You might be interested in it. And from the minute I walked in, I was like, I think I'm supposed to be here. Right when I walked in, I don't know if you ever have had a moment like that when you're sitting somewhere and I'm like, I could picture myself in this building. I could picture myself coming here every day. And then I met with a woman who would be my manager for about 2 years. And I was like, okay, I want to work for her. I want to work with her, and walked through the office. So it felt really good. And I've been with DAT for about 3 years, and it's honestly been like the highlight. I would say it's been the highlight of my career, getting to work with so many amazing people, and working for a company that's been around for 42 years that is doing something pretty amazing. I think a lot of people don't think about freight. I didn't think about freight before I worked here. And I didn't think about the supply chain. I didn't think I was part of the supply chain, but I am, and so are you, and so is everyone else on this call. And the software that DAT makes supports all of that. And it's really cool because specifically this year, when we all are very aware of how essential transportation and moving goods across America, we're all really, really aware of it this year. And it's been so essential to know that the software that we make is important and integral to that. It's been pretty exciting, and it's been very rewarding. So that's the long roundabout way of how I got here.
Awesome. That's great. I'm a millennial, and I was just, when you had mentioned the remote thing, I remember when we would watch videos, like cassette video cassettes, and that, do you remember that tracking button when it would get like fuzzy and somebody would have to stand and like wait for everyone to tell you, okay, it's clear now? That's what that made me think of. Um, so as you were entering the different the workforce in general, and kind of this tech area that you're coming into, did you commonly see yourself represented among your peers and leadership along your career? And if so, or if not, why do you think that might be?
Well, I grew up in California, specifically in San Jose in Northern California. And I moved to Oregon in the early 2000s. And honestly, it was a pretty big culture shock for me. Um, the demographics here are very, very different. Black people make up only like a little over 2% of the population here in Oregon. So I guess I was mentally prepared as I was seeking opportunities, that it wasn't going to be very likely that I would see someone who looked like me, or even possibly have peers that look like me. And I was okay with that. I think like a lot of Black people, we're used to being the only one in a space, in a situation, or even in the workplace. So I was mentally prepared for that. And that's kind of what my career was for pretty much the majority of my time in Oregon. And then something really interesting happened when I joined um, the tech space, and when I joined DAT. It was the very first time since I've lived in California that I had several BIPOC peers and colleagues, and that I was seeing diversity, gender diversity in leadership. So that was something that really actually made me that much more excited to work there. Like I said, I met my boss when I first started, and I'm like, okay, there are a lot of really amazing women here, and then there are a lot of people of color here. Um, this is a place that I feel like I could be part of. Another thing that I think is interesting, we all know that diversity is like an ongoing goal, and that representation matters. Since I've been at DT, it's been one of the honors, and a really high point in my career. I get to co-lead our Women in Technology group, and man, that has been so fulfilling for me. Our group it's open to all employees and covers all job functions and departments, and it's been really special to kind of facilitate conversations and be part of conversations about, you know, diversity and representation, and creating these safe spaces for conversations about, you know, inclusion. And I was really excited about the idea for this I am tech, because we talk about that in our group. You know, people who aren't engineers and who aren't developers. Am I in tech? It's like, yeah, you are in tech. The things that you do to support the creation of these products is integral. It's important. Being on the phone, you know, processing things, everything that everyone does in that building is part of technology. So it's been special to be part of that. And then I do also just want to say that I'm hopeful that someone sees me today doing this and they feel represented, because I think it really does matter, and it can inspire people to get outside of their own comfort zones and try something different.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That was heartwarming. Thank you. Um, we touched on this a couple of times when we talked before on uh, the idea of imposter syndrome, and like you were just mentioning, where people were like, "Am I in tech? If I'm an admin, or even when I started my position, I'm not a software engineer. My partner is, and but I support the tech industry." How have you battled that particular issue, or how do you approach that personally, the idea of being an imposter, either in your everyday tasks and or being in tech as a marketing expert?
Um, I really, really love that you're asking this question and that you asked everybody this question. Yes, I have definitely felt kind of imposter syndrome, where I'd say like moments of feeling inadequate or moments of self doubt. I felt it as a student, as a mother, a professional, and as a Black woman. And I think it's pretty common to have moments of self doubt. But I think the trick is to not let it paralyze you. And if I'm being completely transparent, I had a flash of imposter syndrome when Kara reached out to me to speak. I was like, wait a minute, who, me? And then I thought about it. I was like, yeah, why not me? Wait, of course me. Definitely me. So it's funny. I think it happens all the time, and there are some things that I do um, to help myself get out of that mindset. Often, the first place I go is I seek out people that I feel safe with, and I talk about it, and that helps me kind of separate the fact from the fiction. And if the imposter syndrome is rooted in like maybe a past failure or mistake, I think like, well, did I learn something from it? Have I made that mistake again? And like just try to unpack it a little bit more. And did it help me with something else in the future? And then finally, I think you've got to be authentic. I can't be anyone other than Karinne, and I try really hard not to compare myself to other people. I think we all make that mistake, but I try not to. And I really just have to own what my strengths and weaknesses are. And I try really hard to show myself compassion in those moments of self-doubt, like the same way I would show a friend if they came to me in that moment.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's tough to step away from that, but like you said, like confiding in others, and especially leaders that you feel um
Pep you
Kara
up. They can pep
regularly
you
puts,
up.
yeah, Kara puts me in that position where she's like, well, she'll ask me to do something like this,
Yeah.
where I'm like, "Are you sure?" She's like, "Yes, I'm absolutely sure you
We
should do
talked about
this."
that when we were just getting ready, and you were like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, I was in hospitality. I know how to talk to people. I'm just talking to people.
Yeah.
I gave myself the same pep talk.
Awesome. But I think it's helpful also to hear that and that's the thing, like that you're our fourth interview this week, and every single person has experienced this. And we all learn from it and grow from it. And I think that's the big takeaway, is knowing, everybody feels that way, and we're all getting by, and we're all learning. And that's awesome. It's made me feel much better about the things I do.
It reminds me that everybody's human.
Yeah.
And I especially like when someone I really respect or admire shares that vulnerability. I'm like, oh, okay, They're human too. They're not perfect, and you don't have to be perfect. It's okay not to be perfect.
Yeah. So you were mentioning that your career kind started in executive admin and a support capacity, and then you transitioned over into focusing on marketing and collaborative, um, creating collaborative experiences and things like that. What what got you specifically interested in making that transition? What were you interested in that made you want to go after that specifically and stick with it?
Well, I think I have to go back to my childhood for that one. I've always been like really creative. I was the youngest of three, and I my older sisters were quite a bit older than me, so I spent a lot of time on my own and entertaining myself and coming up with crazy stories and making my own talk shows before YouTube. So I was literally talking to myself in the mirror and just make always making something, trying to make something, trying to make fun. And I just had lots of ideas and ways that I wanted to be creative. I mean, I would have ideas for commercials that McDonald's or American Express should do, or new candy ideas. And I even wrote like a couple of letters when I was a little kid, like, you should make this candy. And it wasn't until I started to get a little bit older that I realized that people pay you to like be social and be fun and be creative and be a cheerleader for their product. That's actually like a job. I want to do that. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. So I think it was just being able to tap into that part of myself is really what got me excited about marketing and made me want to pursue it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, what you're passionate about, what you're interested in, and what makes you happy, that you're going to be happy to do that every day.
Exactly.
So, what is one of your favorite things about your career? If you could pick like one awesome, great thing that you would want to share with everybody, what would that thing be?
Well, I'm gonna go back to my childhood again. I was definitely the kid who always had joy to have in class and talks too much on her report card. And I somehow put those two things together, and it's my job. I get to connect with people. I get to communicate, and it's wonderful, and I get to be social. So much of what marketing is it's knowing people and communicating with them effectively and identifying their problems and kind of presenting them with the solution. And it's the fun part of it, and that's what's fun about marketing and technology, is because you actually get to be the champion for the products and services that you create and the people that make it. And then you also get to be the cheerleader who is like inspiring and engaging customers and making them aware. And it's just really it's fun, and it's a cool way to bring that part of who I am centrally, of just like really, really liking people, really, really wanting to connect with them, connecting other people. And it's something that I get to do every day.
Yeah, that's great. What would you say is one of the best career decisions you ever made?
Um, so I think there's two, and the first, I think I've already kind of shared it, would be really just finally owning that I wanted to be in marketing and just leaning into it and doing it and seeking out those opportunities and saying no to anything that didn't get me on that path. So those are a series of decisions. And then another, as I mentioned prior to joining DAT, I was laid off for about 7 months, which is a long time. Talk about it, imposter syndrome. I was having it like up the wazoo, because you're looking for work, and the longer it takes you, the more you have to pep yourself up. And I decided that, I need to be doing something. What's something that I wanted to do if I had more time? And I wanted to volunteer more, but I never ever had the time to do it because you'd have to take off work, and I have two kids. So I had time, and I couldn't spend it all just with blinders on looking for work. So I started volunteering regularly with Habitat for Humanity, and I did that for 6 months. And it was it was so good to get up, go help build a house and work with my hands and talk to people. And it really kind of, I think it kind of like grounded me, and it helped me, I think, in my job search, because I could let go a little bit. And I also knew I was still so fortunate to be qualified and employable and looking for work and driving around. I mean, there were so many elements of my life that I was like very grateful for. And I was happy that I actually had time to donate my time. So I would say those are probably the two things that I feel like were great decisions and that I'm proud of.
Yeah, that's awesome. Spending your time like I feel like that will also help like you were saying, it helps you get out of that headspace and that stress of like, I need a job, I need a job, I need a job.
It's
And
so stressful. It really
yeah,
can be stressful.
that's awesome. So on the flip side of that question, what would you say maybe the worst career decision you ever made, or the hardest career decision you ever made?
Um, well, I have two, and I don't know if I want to use the word worst, because if I hadn't made them, I probably wouldn't be right here now with you. So I'm like, in a parallel universe or a sliding doors world, if I had made another decision, what would I do? So I have two, and I'll try to tell them quickly. Um, One was when I was in my second year of college at San Jose State. I was working part time and going to school full time, and I had an opportunity to work full time at a startup. And this is in the late 90s, when just the word startup made you think you were possibly going to be a millionaire. Like, you might be the seventh employee at Yahoo. Like, you can't pass this up, because that's what was happening. Startups, I lived in Silicon Valley. Working at a startup just didn't matter what they did. Working at a startup meant you were that much closer to success. So I dropped out of college, and I took that job, and I had a great time. I was there for about a year until we ran out of funding, and I'm still friends with a lot of people that I work with from there, but it derailed my education for about 10 years. So I did go back and finish, and I graduated from my undergraduate degree, but it derailed it quite a bit. And then the other, I think, was also early in my career, when I kind of hadn't found my voice yet. I stayed in a toxic work environment way too long. And I think it was just because I grew up at a time where it's like, you don't talk back, you respect your elders. I didn't know you could demand respect in the workplace. It was just not a thing that I knew. But I learned a lot. I would say I got a crash course in the behavior and environment that I didn't want to be around. And I haven't been in that environment since. And I learned a lot. I learned how to speak for myself, and how to demand respect, and how to encourage other people to do it as well.
I was really excited to hear your response to this question, because it's a tough question, but the thing I've noticed from everyone we interviewed this week is that everyone has battled with the phrasing of it, that the worst career everybody was like, well, it wasn't the worst because it still got me to where I am now. So I find it encouraging that everyone's like, yeah, I made this decision, or I did this at the time that may not have been the best thing, but I learned from it, and these other great things came out of it. So that, I mean, I left a
Yeah,
job without having another job, and that was the most terrifying thing I ever did. And um, luckily I had met Riley, TA, as a VP of events 3 years before, and it just so happened she needed an event and program coordinator. So it all worked out pretty well, but
yeah,
and I wouldn't be here without having made that decision. So
exactly. I mean, it's sometimes it's like hindsight, right? You look back and think about things that maybe you regret, but honestly, it's so hard to regret things, because any one different decision could have completely changed my life, and not for the better, or meant that I don't have the two amazing kids that I have and love. So it's like, I can't really say that things were mistakes, but I think it's just like, okay, is this a misstep? And did I learn something? And do I not want to do that again?
Yeah.
So I think that's probably why everybody's kind of had that reaction, because you live a little bit longer and you work a little bit longer, and you're like, well, I couldn't really have changed it because then I wouldn't have learned that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. I hope that helps somebody
Yeah.
to lean into making the
Yes.
mistake
Yes.
and
Or it's not
learning.
the mistake, it's a bump and
Yeah.
you'll be fine. And today is also not forever. You can change your mind. You can fix it. You can make it better, or you
Yeah.
can try to learn from it.
And if you need a pep talk, call one of us. We'll
Put
help you.
us, like, let's do a group chat.
Yeah. We'll do
We will
this
pep
all
you
over
up.
again.
We'll do this. We will pep you up.
Okay, so this is our last question before we go to audience Q&A. It's one of my favorites. And you're talking about your childhood, so I'm really curious what the response will be. How do you think your 10-year-old self would react to what you do now?
This was my favorite question too. And it actually influenced me talking more about myself as a child, because I started thinking, I was like, who was 10-year-old Corinne? Um,
Because you're in marketing and that all tied the continuity
yeah,
together.
I
That's
think
really
I could
good.
kind of draw the line back to, my younger self. And first, I think she'd be kind of bummed that I wasn't living in a house in the sky like on the Jetsons, because she 100% thought that was going to happen. 100%. But honestly, I think she'd be really excited and proud to see who I've become and that I've accomplished, many of her goals. I'm a college educated professional who's well liked and respected. I'm a mother to two amazing kids that I love and I have lots of fun with, and I'm a fun and good mom. I get to use a computer every day, and I think you all know that that was very important to 10-year-old me. Very important. And I get to use design and technology and creativity to kind of inform and influence people. And I think that she would think that was pretty cool too. Um, Finally, I think I work in this really beautiful and fun office, and I'm surrounded by like all of these amazing and talented people. I'm really eager to get back to it, but I think she would be proud of that too. And 10-year-old Corinne would probably give me a high five, I think.
Awesome. Great. And I haven't heard anybody say their 10-year-old self would be disappointed. I've heard surprised or, excited, but it's
Yeah.
lovely to hear that everyone uh, is doing what they love. That's been uh, really exciting and lovely to hear. All right, everyone. So now it's time for audience Q&A. If you look on your screen, you can scan the QR code that'll take you to the Q&A session, or you can go to menti.com and enter the voting code 6116362. You can submit questions for Corinne, and they'll pop up on the screen in just a minute. How old are your kids, Corinne?
My son Cody will be 9 next month, and my daughter Haley just turned 16.
16?
Yes, 16. So she's driving. I'm helping teach driving, which is a practice in patience, but she's doing great. She's doing great. But yeah, they're fun. Today I don't have my intern behind me, but usually my third grader shares the space with me and is back there on his laptop, plugging away, talking, raising his hand. So it's been interesting.
Okay, we have our first question. What is your Women in Tech group studying next? We need some ideas.
Well, so we just wrapped up 2020, and I mentioned I co-lead it, and my co-leader and I are actually meeting on Monday to put together our try to put together our schedule for the coming year. So what we do each month, we have a monthly meeting that's about 90 minutes. 30 minutes of it is social, so that we can connect and check in on each other. That's been really important for all of us this year. I think more so than even before 2020, just to have a time to connect with each other and check each other's temperature. And then we spend 60 minutes either an internal speaker, maybe we're discussing a book or an article, but we've had a lot of outside speakers come in this year. So we're hoping, I think, to have a good mix of some of that. And then we also do a shorter, more informal meeting called our WIT chats that are 30 minutes, still has a couple of minutes that are social because, again, really important to not just jump into it. We really want to touch base with each other first. And then it's been a really interesting opportunity for people within the office to share, tips and tricks and best practices. So I think we're trying to cover the gamut of talking about technology and trends and having people from PDX WIT come in and speak to us, as well as talking about issues that matter to our group as a whole. Like we've talked about imposter syndrome, things like that. And we've talked about, getting more women in engineering and interviewing and, how to take up space and how to um, collaborate and contribute when you are at the table. You have a seat at the table, but you're not sure if you should really say something, and how extroverts can support introverts. So I think we've covered the gamut and talked about so many different things. But what we tend to do is we try to find things that we think resonate with our group, but also give them a forum to tell us, here are the things that we want to know about. Here are the things that matter to us, or here are the things where there's a gap for us.
Awesome. Our next question: what are your goals for the next year or 5 years?
5 years or 5 years, and not year or 5 years. Well, this year has felt like a lot of years. So does that mean one more month? My goals for the next month? Just kidding. Um, I, this has always been like a really hard one for me because I think some positions, some roles are, it's like very clear, like I want to be the VP or I want to be um, a director. I think I tend to just say that in 5 years, I want to know way more than I know now. I want to be touching more lives. I definitely want to be volunteering more. I would like to get back to sharing space with people. And I think the work that I've been able to do with our WIT group is something that I also want to grow. I think at some point I would love to find a way to just contribute more to the community. So I think continue learning and doing great work in marketing, continue to be a great part of my organization. And I think embodying all the things that marketing is, and being really communicative and being a cheerleader. But I think also personally for me, just really continuing to grow and learn and share all of the things that I'm growing and learning with others.
Awesome. Our next question: you mentioned staying in a toxic workplace before you found your voice. What would you recommend as steps that women in tech can take to find their own voices?
Well, I think I would probably borrow from the tip that I mentioned before with the imposter syndrome. Find people that make you feel safe and talk to them about it. Because I think one of the things that happened for me in that environment, which anybody who, toxic environment or toxic relationship, it doesn't matter. If you've ever been in that, sometimes you get to a point where you don't even realize you're in it. So sometimes talking to people that know you and that you trust and you feel safe with will, one, make it clear to you that the environment is not okay and that it's not safe and that it is okay to um, either try to change it or to leave it. So I think that would probably be my main advice is, if you don't think that you can um, improve the environment, or if you're not sure if it's toxic, start talking to the people that you trust and figuring out what's good for you. But you don't have to stay in a situation that doesn't suit you and makes you dread going to work every day and makes you feel unsafe, or um, you know or like you're not good enough. definitely there are things that we can all do to work on our own self-esteem, but you can't stay in an environment that's just kind of beating you down every day.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. I have a question, and it would take me
Mm.
too long to type it. Um, what would you like to see TAO do to continue to support and amplify voices that may not be in the historic majority of the tech ecosystem within Oregon?
I think a lot of the things that you're starting to do and that you're planning for 2021 are great. This series, for one, I think is really special and really important that you're seeking out BIPOC and LGBTQIA plus members and employees of member companies to really talk about themselves and share their stories. I think one highlighting those stories is a really great first step, because someone who identifies one way or the other might hear that and feel a little bit more compelled to, like I said, try something different, get outside of their comfort zone, or ask for another opportunity at work, or raise their hand for a project that they've always wanted to work on. And I think even the intro that you gave, where you honor the indigenous land that your company is on, doing something simple like that, you're setting a precedent that other companies can begin to model, and giving respect, and acknowledging the contributions of other cultures. I think that's a really powerful example that you're setting. I think continue to do that, continue to seek out those opportunities, and if you find that you're not getting enough of people attending these sessions, um, I think you start to seek out, like, okay, do we need to be listing them in other places and advertising them in other places? But I would assume the goal would be by this time next year, doing these series, that you will hopefully start to see the payoff, that you're having more and different conversations with people from all kinds of walks of life, and that more people are realizing that tech is something that they could do. Or even like one of the other speakers earlier in the weekday, Lynn, was talking about, you don't even have to go to college sometimes for some of these opportunities. Like, you can go to code school and you could learn how to do this amazing thing. You can learn how to build and create tools that make people's lives easier. And you could do that relatively easily and quickly. And there's a lot of opportunity there. So I think keep doing what you're doing. I think what you've just started, I think is going to be great. I'm excited. I'm planning to attend several of them. And Justin asked me if if there's one of these sessions where he actually gets to answer all these questions. He asked me to interview him, and I would absolutely love to do that. I would love to hear all of your answers to these questions.
Well, thank you. I was telling Corinne earlier that I feel so rude asking all these very personal questions and not really sharing anything about myself. So look for that next year. We'll
Yes, I
definitely
want to
make that
know.
happen.
Yes, I want to know.
Wonderful. All right, everyone. Well, that is wrapping up our series for this week. That's hashtag I am Tech Oregon. The series will continue into 2021, so be on the lookout for that. You can check out events at techoregon.org/events. You can also follow us on Twitter at Tech Oregon, and we are posting upcoming projects, programs, all that good stuff on LinkedIn as well. Corinne, do you have any closing comments or words of wisdom for our audience?
I wanted to thank TAO for this opportunity. So Justin, I know this was your first time interviewing people, and this was my first time speaking, and I was just really excited about sharing my story and connecting with everyone. And I just want to thank you for signing up and tuning in today. And please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I will accept your invite, and I will like your things, and we can connect and get to know each other. And I hope everybody has a safe and happy holiday.
Thank you, Corinne. Thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you again soon.
Bye. Thank you so much.